What's up, everybody? It must be Wednesday night. Must be 8 o'clock because you got the In Touch with the Miller Boyzzz, your weekly talk show where we discuss all things impacting the African American community of the city of Fresno and the larger surrounding area. And tonight we're doing things a little bit differently, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But we're doing this remotely tonight, so I'm not quite sure how, and I don't know if we can keep up with the chat and the Facebook tonight. But anyway, we're going to be talking to you for the next hour about some things that are on our minds and hopefully on your minds as well. We'll give you some information to contemplate and some things to do moving forward. And so, G, you all good?
Yeah, I'll be there in a few minutes. There we go. A little bit better. All right.
I see you got your outdoor studio going on.
That's it. That's it, man.
Yeah, I
The
would
bright lights.
I would let you see my background, but it's your mom and pop's living room, so that ain't gonna work. So I'll leave my Black Lives Matter up there. But anyway, before we get into it, as I always do every week, I want to encourage everybody to make sure you go to 2020census.org and complete your census form. Very simple process that we the people who are talking to you right now, as well as the people that are in your household, the people that you care about, need you to complete your census so that we make sure we get our equitable slice of the federal dollars when they get divided up over the next 10 years moving forward. So please go to 2020census.org and complete your census form. Also, I want to encourage everyone to go to sos.ca.gov. So sos.ca.gov, and that is the Secretary of State's office for the state of California. And when you go to that site, you'll be able to do lots of different things. One, you'll be able to register to vote if you need to register. You can re-register to vote if you've changed, if you've moved recently, you need to change and update your registration information, you can do that. And then also you can check your voting status. So if you're not sure where, you're registered to vote, but you're not sure where you're registered to vote, you go in there, check my status, punch in some simple information, and then they will be able to tell you what address, whether you're active status or inactive status, and also where was your last address or current address that you're registered at. So please make sure you go and do those two duties. If not for you, do it for me, do it for G, do it for those that you love. Again, that's sos.ca.gov. Okay. G Mill, where you want to start at tonight?
Oh wow. We're going to be in a couple different places, but I would really like to start with Rep at Edison High School football, Marcus Miller. Yee-hoo! Okay, we got that out the way. Next, I would like to tell everybody and encourage everybody at the front of the show that if you're a legal male or female adult that can register, go register and get a gun. Learn how to use it. Go learn how to use it. Woo! Okay, those two things are out of the way for me. The article you sent me this afternoon. I don't want to stay on it all night, but the article
Fresno
about
B article?
The Fresno B article about Fresno Unified and black. Basically, it was about black. So not so much. I don't know. How would you put it in the terms? Teachers, mentors, educational system.
Well, the baseline for the article was the need for more black educators. It started out talking about teachers, at least when I did my part of it with the interview with the young lady who did the article. Shout out to Ms. Velez. She wanted to talk about the low number of African-American teachers. Well, my point of dealing with this comes in at the administrative level. And my statement to her, what she actually quoted me in the article, was, when you have more black principals, you'll have more black teachers. And she kind of took that statement and went in a direction where she did a lot of data and did some research and different things. But the sad part, and I didn't read the article, I actually listened to it. I was a little disappointed with Fresno Unified's responses.
Now, when you say
Um,
that, the response is in the article, you mean from the administrators?
yes, from
Okay.
Mr. Um, oh, I can't think of his name now. The director of human resources, Paul Isvog, him,
Yes.
and then also their communications director. Um, they're not being transparent. They
Why do you say they're not being transparent?
because they're not. They took some of the statements that were made by their teachers, as well as statements by Felicia Treadwell, Quarles Treadwell, and put their own spin on it.
Well,
They
well,
didn't validate those statements that came out of their mouths. They took what came out of their mouths and validated it to support Fresno Unified.
right, and that's I can say this. That's called systemic racism.
Agreed.
You know,
Agreed.
where you don't want to hear what the other side has to say, and when you hear what the other side has to say, you take it because you're so comfortable, and you put your own spin on it. You don't let walk the truth walk. That's systemic racism. So I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I was going to ask you after reading that, were the people that put that spin, and I'm glad you went that way, are you the people that put the spin on that talk, the administrators within Fresno Unified, are they African American?
No.
Right. Okay. So I don't want to look bad is what I took out of that. And I don't want where I work to look bad. So I'm gonna tint it and slant it to be in my favor. That's one of the tenets of systemic racism.
Correct. Agreed. Wholeheartedly agree with you. And that's what my disappointment is. Um, I've had the same conversation in a group setting as well as individually with Superintendent Bob Nelson, Dr. Nelson, and he's been very open and transparent in those conversations. Basically, that Fresno Unified needs to do better to serve its African American population, the student population. He'll readily has admitted that he doesn't have all the answers, but he fully recognizes that more needs to be done because the African American student population in Fresno Unified has been not doing well over the last 2 or 3 decades. So I appreciate that, and that's where my frustration and disappointment comes with Mr. Izog, or however he pronounces his last name, and then the young lady who's their spokesperson, that they didn't acknowledge that at all. They basically said, and in Felicia's, Miss Treadwell Quarles' thing, she went as far, the communication lady went as far as, this is actually what Miss Quarles Treadwell meant. Didn't validate what she said. She didn't, like you said, spun it. This is what she meant.
Well, that's another tenet of now the system of racism and white supremacy. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to give you your opinion. I'm not going to say, well, this is what she said, and I'm going to counter it by saying this, because this is how no, obviously she wasn't smart enough to make a statement on her own. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to say, well, this is what she meant, which I don't know if that's what she meant or not, because I don't know the lady. But those are tenets of a broken system, and a system that does not want to listen to the people that it's serving. And if you're not serving me and listening to me, then how can you work and operate in my best interest?
Right. So one of the things also that Ms. Velez, the writer of the article, told me was that this is a part of a series. And so if I'm not mistaken, in the article, it said that this is the wrap up to something that's been going on.
Oh.
The conversation I had with her was that there will be some additional conversation and some additional discussions about, African American educators, or the absence of African American educators here in our particular area. And so I'm going to follow up with her. She left the door open for us to have additional conversations, but this is not a one up. We can't have this one article, this one conversation, and think that it's going to solve all the issues. And so, yeah, but you're spot on with this, with the system being broke by not acknowledging and not recognizing these concerns that are being shared by professionals.
And I want to say this about the system being broke. The system is being broke. The system is broke for the African American community. The system is not broke for the people who put in place those tenets of systematic racism, systematic oppression. Um, though this system that they put in place has been working for a very long time for their advantage. So that's, it's a broken system, but we need to, as African Americans, figure out how we can interject, and that's going to take me into the next portion of what I would like to talk about, unless there's something else. But we have to figure out a plan, our own system to affect changes within this total system, that this experiment that we call, America, or Fresno County, or the city of Fresno.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that. So one of the things, you and I differ on how to get it done, but one of the things that I'm realizing is that this COVID lockdown, being off of campuses, provides opportunities, and it provides opportunities to people who are willing to take chances. And you talked about last week about having the Miller Academy and getting 100 students. Why don't you and I create our own online school? Because that's one of the issues that goes on with ethnic groups that want to do schools. They don't have the ability to do the brick and mortar component. They can't rent or buy facilities. Well, all we got to do is have a Zoom. Why don't we create our own academy online as a pilot to build from?
I don't accept challenges.
Okay, I don't accept challenges. So anyway, the reason why I bring it up,
let me say this. Let me say this. I will support positivity at every change and every interval, but I have to do it constructively. So I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen constructively, but yeah, okay, I accept. Hey, let's do it.
Okay, so let me do my selfless plug here. I don't normally do this, but this is a perfect opportunity. So one of the things I've been doing for the last 2 Wednesdays at 6:00 before we do our show is I've been doing a community class, community course about politics. Call it Politics 101.
Is that every week?
Huh?
Is that every week?
Yeah, I'm doing it every Wednesday in September. So we got 3 more sessions. I had a week.
I missed tonight. I'm sorry about that.
Session tonight was session number 2, from 6 to 7. So we do it for an hour. And I'm learning, struggling. I did put together a PowerPoint, put some slides in there, and for whatever reason it won't work. So now I'm learning kind of how going through technology, and we'll get back to that in a second here also. But here's an opportunity for us to extend that. If you wanted to have all male, 16 to 18-year-old conversation around something, African American history, African American kings, the continent of Africa, whatever you want to talk about, for us to be able to provide a setting that may snowball into the foundations for the Miller Academy. So I just, as bad as this coronavirus, the impact of the coronavirus has been, it has presented, at least in my brain, it's presented a tremendous amount of opportunities around how to educate people. I can tell you right now, we are never going back to one-on-one, full-day instruction the way that it was done before. There are going to be,
of course, that's another tenet that I disagree with you on. But okay.
I'm just telling you right now, because of the convenience of doing online. Okay, so here's why K-12 is struggling so. Perfect example with me tonight. I put together this PowerPoint, 12 slides, 10 or 12 slides, and inside of the PowerPoint, I embedded these 2-3 minute little YouTube videos that highlighted what I was talking about. Well, I found out tonight that when you embed things into PowerPoint and try to show them on Zoom, doesn't work. So what I had to do, I did all this work and all this preparation, when all I should have done is just created the PowerPoint to guide the conversation and then go right back to sharing my screen directly and go to my technology. So that's the part that teachers are going through as well. They haven't been trained on all of the resources that they've been provided to be able to educate students. And a lot of teachers are learning on the fly what they can and can't do. Unfortunately, their audience is not grown folks. Their audience is young people whose attention spans are not very long. And so I kind of am seeing now firsthand where that disconnect of what's going on with the Zoom instructions is happening. So what you were telling me last week about what was going on with the little one, where she kept getting kicked out of the system, whatever it was, and you said she was trying to present things and got frustrated. I can see how that happens at no fault of anyone. If anybody needs to be faulted, in that case, it should be Fresno Unified, because they haven't properly trained their teachers how to use the technological tools that they've provided them to instruct their children, and be able to check it, do their own troubleshooting, those type of things. So, but we're not. We're not. If you're going to be a sound, effective teacher going forward, you're not going to be. You cannot rely on face-to-face instruction. Our society and our system is not going to allow that as acceptable.
Okay.
So I'll be calling on you when we set up this course, the Miller Academy course. But it's a matter of convenience being around. Some of the struggles I'm understanding at the college level are that students are used to having class Tuesday from 8 to 9 or Tuesday from 9 to 10. Well, with this virtual learning, it doesn't matter what time class is, and so teachers are kind of doing things by convenience. So this week we may be meeting on Tuesday from 10 to 11. Next week we may be meeting on Wednesday from 10 to 11. And so there's that flexibility that's provided by not having on-site one-to-one classroom in classroom instruction. In the classroom instruction is now leaning to frustrations on the academic side with the student part of it.
Oh, I can see that. I wouldn't want a flux in my scheduling like that. I would want it the same day, the same time, throughout the week. Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I mean that's some of the frustrations I've been getting. I've been had my first coffee talk yesterday as part of my campaign. That was some of the stuff we talked about. Tomorrow night we've got our first town hall at 6 tomorrow night. And so I'm just having an opportunity to. Those are for opportunity for me to listen. If people chime in and want to ask questions and stuff, for me to listen to what their concerns, their questions are. If I have an answer, to be able to give them an answer response, or maybe be able to lead them to an answer that they can get on their own. But I think that for me, although these Zoom meetings get kind of tiresome at times, I think it's a great platform, if utilized correctly, to be able to instruct and inform people of what's going on. Us being able to do the show tonight, which leads me into one of the things I want to talk about. Because of the air quality today, we needed to do things remotely, and so we're able to do that by Zoom, and not have to go into the studio today. So, have you been keeping up with the fires? The one that's
Let me ask you this question: the fires here, or the fires in Ashland, Oregon, Medford area?
The ones I was talking about, the ones here. I did hear about the one that was in the Medford area yesterday. I haven't been keeping up with that.
It burned down to two towns. The fire in Oregon yesterday burnt down two towns between where Michael lives and where Michael works. He works 20 minutes or 15 minutes north in Medford, and the fires were so intense that it burned down Phoenix and Talent, which are between, and kicked up such a smoke that they had to close I-5 going north. That stretch of road between Ashland and Medford. So that was just a little personal side note. But yeah, I've been keeping up with the fires here. They've been burning out of control, and but I don't understand. I don't. What is your question by me asking and keep?
Just, I mean, today, we haven't seen the sun all day. It looked like it was going to be pouring down rain today here in Fresno. Nobody saw the sun all day, but it's because not because of clouds. It's because of the smoke that's in the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's been like
Um,
that for quite a while now.
yeah, and so I just, I know that some people are having irritations to it now, sore throats, ear, nose irritations, those type of things. It hasn't really been bothering me. I know Aaron, my son, 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, might have been last week, was complaining about irritation with his throat, nose, and eyes, and that type of stuff. Our tech guy today, he's kind of got bombarded with the day, and so I just brought that up as a
Yeah, no,
question.
I've on that note, I've talked to a couple friends that are in the medical industry about COVID-19, and it attacks your lungs, and this is not good weather for those sufferers of COVID, because it's creating another layer of difficulty for people to breathe. So yeah, no, it's these are trying times. This is rough.
Yeah, if you pull up that creek fire and look at the map of the area that it's burning, basically it's burning up all along 168. We just spent the Aiden's birthday up there the first weekend of September, and that whole area where we stayed up there by Shaver, it's burned up. And so I thought it had affected Hoods in the Woods, where we go camping every year, but it's to the east of where we go camping, so our campground area is okay. Um, but I just thought I would bring that up since that's something I've been getting. Has anybody been calling you from out of state, asking how you are?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, they have.
Yeah, I think that's partially because people talk, it's Fresno, 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 and so they don't really don't understand the topography that we have here. That those fires, I ain't gonna get to the city of Fresno. It's up above us. It's a smoke
Up in the
inhalation
mountains. Yeah,
that's going to affect us. How is Michael doing? Is he all right?
yeah, he's all right. He was a little touch and go, nervy last night. They were up till 2 o'clock in the parking lot. There was 10 people from the college that um, were that worked in Medford that couldn't get back to Ashland, so they all piled up and went to a person's house, a soccer player's family's house, in about 20 minutes north, and then they got the fire was moving north. Another fire sparked up in North Medford and was moving toward, get this, White City and Eagle Point, and that's where they were, in Eagle Point. And so they decided to go to a flat place spot, a parking lot, because they were being evacuated. And they got the all clear at 2 o'clock in the morning that they could return to the house that they were gonna camp out at or hold up in.
So he got cut off by the fire. Couldn't get back to Ashland.
That's correct.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
it would have took him. It would have took him with the detour, before they closed the detour. It would have took him 6 hours to get from Medford to Ashland, which is a 15-minute drive. 6 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, he all right though. He's good. We talked to him
I'll,
today.
I'll call and tell you if I can touch base with him tomorrow. So okay, so
Yeah.
here's the big one for you.
What's that?
Did you watch the movie?
Yes, I did. What time is it?
We're at the
15 after the
halfway.
hour. 20 minutes after the hour. What time is it?
We're at the halfway junction.
All right.
So
Yeah.
I this is a kind of a lead in. I stumbled across this movie. I have no idea how I stumbled across it. Called Uncle Tom, and it is a documentary of black conservatives. And the person I found, did a little research, found out that the person who put it together, who sponsored it, is Larry Elder. And those of you who have been involved in politics know that he's kind of one of the more vocal black conservative voices right now, and he's out of Chicago. So he is the driving force behind this movie. And so after I saw it, it took me 3 sittings. It was only 90 minutes, but it took me
No,
3
it's
sittings.
longer than 90 minutes. No,
Um,
no, no. It's 90 minutes. No, it is 100. No, 120 minutes.
120 is 2 hours. Well, it's 2 hours in. It took me
Yeah.
3 sittings to be able to get through. I still didn't even ever get through the entire documentary. But so I asked my brother to watch it so that we could kind of talk and respond back and forth to it. So
And,
what's your initial
no, 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 no.
reaction?
I gotta ask you
Okay,
what you got to lead this conversation, and the reason is, you're a Democrat, right?
I am.
Okay, and I am not.
Okay.
So the piece was about uh, why black people should be Republicans and the advantage that black people have as Republicans. So the counter would be a Democratic person, such as yourself. So the because after watching it, my take is a little bit different. No, I don't want to be a Republican. No, I don't want to be a Republican, but I don't want to be a Democrat either. So that's kind of why I want to say I would like for you to lead into that because my views are a little different.
Yeah.
Always are.
Well, I've always been a Democrat, lifelong Democrat. That's the only political party that I've ever been a part of. The reason why a Democrat originally, I'm assuming I became a Democrat because my mother and father are Democrats. I was raised in a Democratic household under Democratic philosophies and understandings. But then, as I have come into my own adulthood, the Democratic platform of people first over corporations, the underpinnings of the social components that goes into Democrats about people, good of people first over the individual, aligns with where my ideologies are, my philosophies, and the work I've done in education. And I'm thoroughly involved, ingrained in our local and actually state now politics on the Democratic side of the ledger. And so that's why I'm a Democrat. And I can't speak for other people, but that's where I am now.
So okay, I am a registered Democrat,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's because of the same. My parents were Democrats and raised us as Democrats, taught us the democratic philosophies. Um, I would say we differ in what we are going to call the social programs and where we go with the social programs. Um, and so some of the tenets, so now I can say this. Now, some of the tenets of the show, I was right in line with, which brings me
Which ones?
uh, to do away with some of the social programs.
Such
Um,
as
as an African American and a black person in America, I don't agree with the all of the handouts that people get. I believe that we as African Americans should be um, held in a special place and have different attributes bestowed upon us because of the 400 years of slavery and mistreatment that we've been through. The problem with that, okay, but that's where I am with that's the some of the social things. I
so
think that
it's not so if I may, you don't have a
Mhm.
problem with social programs. You have a way with the way that the social programs that we currently have, how they're being administered, distributed, and those type of things. That's what I'm hearing you say. Unless I'm
right. Do
okay,
you know who wrote the first affirmative action excuse me program and where it was written?
I do not.
It
I
was
don't remember. I know I probably have heard this before, but I don't remember.
Claude Anderson
Okay, I know who
in
he is.
Miami, Florida.
I don't. I didn't know that. I do know who Dr. Claude Anderson is.
Yeah, and he wrote a program for minorities
Hmm.
with black people in mind. That was taken over by Cuban people, and now black people are relegated back to the lower rung of society.
I okay. So I hear you and I agree with that wholeheartedly. There's tons of programs that are in that situation. The whole the thing with education, Brown versus the Board of Education. The intent was to make kids equal, but that's not what happened. And so
What
yeah,
happened?
what
What happened, and how did it happen?
what happened is that the African American, the black kids, the Negro kids at that particular time was taken into um, I forget what the term is, but they were taken into white America's educational system, and that's where they were taught. They did not bring in the African American professors and teachers, principals, and the other African Americans that were working with those kids into that system, nor did they take the white kids and move them into those predominantly black schools, those segregated schools, so that there's an exchange. There was an isolation that happened after that point in time, and we call it desegregation. But actually, it, it the purpose of that lawsuit has never come to fruition because the purpose of it, the intent of that lawsuit, and where we are now, where the government wanted to take it was not aligned, was misaligned. I'm not
Okay,
saying it shouldn't have happened, but the outcomes is not what Thurgood Marshall and the rest of those NAACP legal defense team what they envisioned.
right, and that's what we talked about earlier about the article that was written in the Fresno Bee. If I am the person that is in control of the finances, the understandings, the laws, the thises and the that's, well then I can set the structure up to benefit, always benefit the people who look like me, the people who talk like me, the people that come out of my households. Claude Anderson now says that if he could take away affirmative action, he would have. That
But,
experiment didn't work
yeah,
for
because
him.
the outcome, what he intended, the intended outcomes he expected from that was hijacked and taken over.
Right. So
Mhm.
now let's turn to the article for numbers. I'm gonna base my argument on the numbers of the article. Who is the minority population in Fresno Unified?
African Americans. If you're thinking about the three main ethnic groups, Latino, African American, white, and Hmong, the Latino population is the largest. The Hmong is the second largest. White is third. African American is fourth.
Right. So who's in control of that situation? Is it the largest population?
No,
No, it's not. It's the second largest, which would be the whites.
actually, whites is, in Fresno Unified is the third largest ethnic group.
Okay, so that would be the third. So they are the majority minority and power in a power structure in that which is Fresno Unified.
Right. By the
So
way, as a side note, one of the things politically that I'm doing, and I'm working with some folks to introduce us into the Democratic side of the ledger, is to stop using the word minority, because minority has an inferior complex associated with it, and it's always ascribed to ethnic communities. And so I'm working with some folks out of the Black Caucus to do away with the use of the term minorities when describing ethnic populations, and either referring to them directly by their ethnicity or to refer to them as an ethnic population. Because words have meanings. Words carry weight.
yeah,
And every time,
and that's kind of where I'm going with this
right,
though. The Hispanic population in Fresno Unified is not the minority.
they're
Once
the
again,
majority.
once again, African Americans are relegated to the bottom spot as the minority. Now we've made minority a bad term, but the reality of it is that it's just a term. Words,
Words have weight,
yes,
man.
words have meaning.
Hmm.
Words have meaning, but you can rub it until it is the way it is. I agree with you. I do agree with you. I think that term is misused and should be done away with, and then we will truly see the ethnic disparities
Hmm.
that are going on, and we will see that the African American or the black person is truly, I'm going to say minority, but the disadvantaged in this situation and needs help, and not a handout per se. Um,
So define. Give me an example of what you mean by help, and what the difference in your definition of help and handout is.
there needs to be there needs to be a revamping of the system of the American experience. And
Agreed.
what we now see as the people that are in power, that can have issues with systemic racism and put them on full blown front street in an article and not be called to task on them, because of the structure that has set up a mindset so that African Americans will not even protest or say anything. Oh, that's just them over there doing what they're doing to us. That's the help. That's the mindset. Like you said. Now, the help, this should not come from other people. And this is another place where me and you have a disagreement. I don't think that black folks should team up with anybody else until we first put our own emphasis in what it is that we want to see and what we want to do and have that come to fruition. Because every time someone else interjects something into our mainstream or makeup, because we've always been here for 400 years and we've always had the lead on everything, everybody else has been able to slip by and run by as African Americans, as the tip of the spear, have had to fight.
We don't disagree on that. The only thing that I think that you misunderstand what I say about the collaboration is that every collaborative effort that goes forward, ethnic collaboration that goes forward, every collaborating group's agenda needs to be part of that. And so I agree with you that the African American community needs to come up with its own, say, 10 commandments, the 10 things that this is what the African American community wants. The Latino community needs to do the same. The Hmong community needs to do the same. Punjabi, everybody needs to do the same. But now when we come together as a collective body to form the majority or the mass of moving forward, then you cannot discredit anybody, what anybody brings to the table. And I think that what happens right now is that our different groups want to discount other people's, what they bring to the party, what they bring to the table. And then that sets up that internal fight.
What you bring to my table is what I allow you to bring to the table.
Okay, so if I bring to your table that I want my kids to have a great education, is that not going to be on the same agenda of all the other ethnic groups in this area? Is there going to be any ethnic group that says, I don't want my children to have a good education? I would say no.
There should not be. No.
There may be one ethnic group or one, it doesn't always have to be ethnicity also. It could be sociology, could be with the LGBT community, could be with the impoverished people, could be whatever the different social groupings are also. So maybe on one group's education is number one, on another group education is number 4, number 5. We don't even need to discuss that. It's on everybody's agenda. I would be willing to bet you that.
So the problem that comes with what you're talking about is that when we construct that and we move it forward, and then you have a situation like SB, and I know this is getting away from, well, maybe not so much. Well, yeah, it is getting away from the conversation of Uncle Tom. But when you have a situation like SB 45, you familiar with that?
What is
That's
it?
the where everybody's saying that bill is going to make pedophilia legal in California.
I've not heard of that at all.
Okay, look, we'll talk about that later. But you run into a situation like that when uh, the informed trick the uninformed into understanding something that is not correct. What I took away from the movie is that I am not a Democrat. I am not a Republican. I am not a conservative. I am not a liberal. I am a black man in America, which have tenets of all of those different things. The people that I want sitting around my table are people that look like me, people that talk like me, people that have my children's best interests at heart. And then we can move from that collective spirit into their places and spaces. But I don't want to hear, well, we supported you on this. Now you have to support us on that.
You know what you just described yourself as, right? A millennial.
Why does everything have to be labels?
It's not a matter of labels, but what you just described is the belief system of our millennial generation. They're not into political parties. They're not into social groups and social organizations. They are about people who look, listen, think, and feel like they do. That's exactly what you just described. So why am I giving you the label?
So what you just did to me, what you just did to me is what you just said that you didn't like from the lady that did the B article.
Not even close. I'm telling you what you just said to me. I'm giving it back to you.
Okay.
The description that you just gave is a description that's ascribed to our millennial generation. They do not think like those of us who come out of the baby boomers generation and the X and Y's, where we are more associated and affiliated with groups. Okay? What does that mean?
Listen.
I just did. I just shared back to you what I heard.
That's what they just did in the article.
I understand what you're trying, the point you're trying to make.
The point that I'm making, not the point that I'm trying to make, the point that I'm making.
I'm not detracting from what you just said.
Okay.
I'm not detracting from what you said at all. I'm not trying to justify what you said at all. I'm just trying to get you to understand that the descriptions you just described to you aligns with the descriptions of the millennials. That's all. That's all I'm sharing with you. I'm not ascribing any judgment to it whatsoever. Okay? People in our generation.
There's no judgment. But thank you.
But there was a judgment in that article.
But thank you for labeling how I am.
I'm not sure why the consternation about the label that I just shared with you. It's a descriptor.
Okay, it's a descriptor. Thank you, Darren.
So when you go to a doctor and you give your doctor your symptoms and you tell
I would say you're not a doctor, but you are a doctor. So,
but when you go to a doctor and you tell them how you feel and stuff, they are going to ascribe something to that. You just gave me some definitions.
Why does the doctor get to subscribe or whatever you said what you've told them?
Because they've been professionally trained in that area. They have licenses, medical licenses, and those type of things that give them permission and ascribe. Doesn't mean they're 100% correct. There's misdiagnosis and misprescription or giving people the wrong prescriptions all the time. Okay? All I'm offering to you is what you just shared with me politically. You are describing yourself by political attributes that are ascribed to the millennial generation. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to define you whatsoever. I just made a point of recognition about what you're saying and the background that I have politically. So I just going back to the movie. It's the same.
Thank you.
thing. It's the same thing that they're doing in there also. They take bits and pieces, okay, as they see things and have ascribed meaning and definition to it. Did you hear them also in there say that the Democrats are the party of slavery? That the Democrats were the party of segregation? Did you hear them say that?
Yes.
Over and over?
Yes.
And they are 100% correct. The Democratic Party of the United States in the 1800s and up until 1962, I think it was 60 or 62, were the party of white supremacy. Lyndon Baines Johnson, when he signed the Civil Rights Act in I guess that would have been 64. 64, 65, 66 in there, something like that. When he
64.
signed, when he signed that into law, the Civil Rights Act, one of the statements he made is the Democratic Party just lost the South. And there were already a title ascribed to those Democrats at that particular time. There was segregation stuff as Dixiecrats. Those people, when President Johnson signed that law, became Republicans. Okay, so the Democratic Party of today, their forefathers were part of slavery, part of segregation. Today, those grandchildren are not in the Democratic Party; they are in the Republican Party. So I want to make sure that that was one of the things that got under my skin.
Okay, but the question then becomes for me, who cares who's swinging the stick? Because from where I sit, it's the same party. The Republicans and the Democrats are the same party. Same bird, same bird, two wings.
They have different methods of getting to the same outcomes. I would agree with you on that. But to say that the Democratic Party now, today's Democratic Party is the party of segregation, is the party of slavery, that is not true.
Well, but see, here's the problem that I have is you tell me that words matter.
Mm-hmm.
So if they were the Democrats to start, how come they're not the Democrats to end? Because they changed?
They never changed their name.
Because people and things change? There's no allowances for that?
Yeah, there's allowances for change.
Somebody said, what's wrong with being a millennial?
Nothing. There's more millennials than there are anybody else. There's nothing wrong with being a millennial.
And Terrence says that things need to be organized in certain issues, such as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and who takes priority when everybody comes to the table. I hope I didn't butcher that too bad, Mr. Grant.
Well, you have conversations about how to. So the Iroquois Nation, the Indians, the Native Americans, the First Nation people that were here when the Pilgrims came over, which our government has foundational components that was formed off of. You need to go back and take a look at how they decided things. They had those different tribes. They would pick out a particular person. They'd come and have conversations. They had the game of lacrosse was how they played to win, who would make decisions about priorities and things. They played lacrosse. The winner then made the decisions. So it was all based on communal understandings and communal collaboration. It wasn't a matter of who's got the most money makes all the decisions. Whoever's got the most money's got all the power. That's the way that our political system and structure is made up now, is that if you are not wealthy, particularly on the national level, if you're not wealthy, you can't be a politician. And that's not a system that's sustainable. And so I would.
Well, this experiment is about over for white folks, and the way they came in with their capitalistic society. Everything in our system is based on capitalism, as you said before, which right. I'm starting to turn more toward. One of the tenets back and forth is racism, white supremacy. That is now being torn to bits. So it's not as easy as the people who have come in and set forth that agenda to move that agenda forward. That's the problem that they're having. It ain't about the collaboration of who's doing this or who's doing that. You know, one of the things in Uncle Tom they were talking about, Larry Elders laid out perfectly how black people are always hollering and screaming about the police department shooting black people. You know, and my thing with that is and how the numbers are actually small and minuscule to how the police are actually shooting black people versus police shooting white people. And then, of course, the Republican tenet and underlying concrete vision is, what about the systematic murders in Chicago of black on black crime? But the reality of it is not that I should not care about somebody else getting shot. That should be just as important. But the reality of it is when my black boys leave the house, I'm going to worry about them getting shot more than I am someone else by the police officers. So why would I take to this community meeting the fact, or to anywhere, the fact that um, those numbers are fake. Those numbers are not real. To teach, well, if they just didn't resist, they would have been okay. Well, that's not always the truth. It's my thing is, before we take the ball to play with the other ethnic groups, we need to have a solidified ball. We need to have an agenda and an understanding before we go and give up our power to someone else to help their causes.
Okay, I agree. But what if your group and my group have the same causes?
Then who's going to take the point and lead on that?
We discuss and we talk about that. We have a conversation, a communal conversation about who is the best person or what is the best way for us to take our agendas forward. People want to have their kids educated. People want to be able to live in crime-free areas. They want to have clean drinking water. They want to have clean air. They want to be able to go to have a way of making earning a living wage, so that they don't have to worry about. So I think my frustration is that we always deal with where we don't align, rather than dealing with what we do align first. And I think that that's part of what Trump's plan is. Why he's been so successful is that he feeds off of where we're not aligned and keeps us apart, keeps us from dealing with what we do have in common. And I think that if we use what we have in common as our starting point, I think our conversations in the ethnic communities and the disenfranchised communities will have a lot more weight and a lot more strength and power going forward. I think that my way of doing this is I want to start with where our commonalities are and not our differences.
Okay, I once again, I'm not going to worry about, it's like I had a conversation with somebody the other night, and what we discussed was the impact of trauma, and what what we discussed was the impact of trauma, and the issue was, um, let me see, the scenario was, we get into a fight, I nick your artery. What's the first thing that you do?
I don't know.
You don't know. And that right there,
I'm gonna probably, if you what do you mean? Wherever I'm bleeding from, I'm probably gonna grab it and try to stop the bleeding.
correct. That, and how you just said, I don't know. I believe that that's the the issue that Black America or African Americans, uh, that's truly the issue. We don't know. You do. You apply direct pressure to stop the trauma, to subvert or lessen the trauma. If I punch you in your eye and you got one eye and that eye closes, then, and you can't see, you have to heal that eye, heal that trauma first before you can go forward. The person I was talking to said you should call or try to get some help. We need to help ourselves first. You need to apply that pressure first. You can't panic and go running around and do those types of things first. We need to help ourselves first. And then if someone because the educational agenda might not be the same as the next person. People get heated with me all the time because I said that they really don't understand the Republican and Betsy DeVos as she works her way in the structure of education as it relates to vouchers, which comes up probably every 25, 30 years. White folks, rich folks don't want to pay for their public education. If I can have, and it used to be through tax breaks, um, people pay for my education, or I get a break on my child's education, I would do it that way. There's a big pot of public money out there. Why shouldn't we be able to dip into that as people? We pay into it and pay for my own child's private education.
You can. You can pay for your own child's private education, but
Not
why
out of
why
public, not
why
out of
should you
public
be
funds.
exactly? Why should you be allowed to take private funds and put it into a private industry?
Okay, that's my point exactly. But the problem with that is that's not how rich white folks want their children to be educated. They want to use private vouchers and public funds to pay for their private education for their children.
Agree. It's a business. But it's not
Every
just
In a capitalistic society, everything's a business. Everything's a business in a capitalistic society.
and that there is what's wrong with having Betsy DeVos in charge of public education.
Agreed. 110%.
So we're up against the time. I think. Give us a time check, KP, on the message line. I know we should be close. But yeah, as usual, we don't differ in where we want to get to. We differ in how to get there. We have two different mindsets, two different ideologies, two different backgrounds, and ways of getting to the same outcome. And I don't think that either side wins when they discard the other person's method or their direction to get to the same spot.
So, in summary of watching the Uncle Tom movie, I think that African Americans should set a 10, 15, 20 point, 50 point, 100 point agenda, whittle it down to what's most important, and discard Democrat and Republican, being that we are the true minority on the face of this what experiment, which is called the United States of America. Try again to do things like Rosewood, like Black Wall Street in Tulsa, like the place down here, Allensworth, and divest ourselves out of the community, not as a whole, but live in these African American enclaves so that we can educate our own and teach them the tenets of slavery, to teach them the tenets of this, to teach them the tenets of that, and understand and give them an understanding of doing what it is. So we can raise our own funds and money and send our kids to historically African American institutions so that we can funnel our children through an existence of African American. So as the article stated today in the Fresno Bee, we can have people that look like us first, that care about us first, and do for us first, so that we can at least live prosperously. We don't have to be the richest. I just want to be able to go to the store and buy good goods. I want to be able to go to the gas station and buy gas. I don't want to have to send my child out running and get bottles thrown at him. I don't want to have to send my child out and have him being shot down in the street or choked out or put a spit mask over him and the police sit on his face till he stops breathing. Those all come because African Americans have divested themselves and merged into the greater of society. Now the police departments need to be changed. Now the educational system needs to be changed. Now all of those things that we rely on have to be changed. So we have to change them. Love,
Okay.
peace, and hair grease.
All right, so we're up against it. We'll pick up this discussion more because I want to talk some more about this Uncle Tom movie. And I encourage
Thank you,
everybody
KB.
out there. I encourage everybody out there to go take a look at it. Also, you can get it on any of the streaming platforms that you're on. And so
Hey, Mr. Miller.
until next week, God willing, we'll see you again here next Wednesday. In touch with the Miller Boyzzz. Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. See you next week. Peace.
Woo!